I want to talk about Gambit. Not Gambit itself, really, but rather the insane community reaction that I have been seeing about Gambit in response to the State of the Game post from a little while ago. This is not going to be a Let's Fix Gambit video. That is not the point of this video. In short, Bungie said that they did a whole revamp of Gambit in the Witch Queen to almost every aspect of Gambit, and that all of those updates did not make that much of an impact on the engagement of Gambit. They know that people want to see new maps, but it would take away resources from the rest of the game to do so. So instead, they are bringing back Cathedral of Scars and adding in some enemy types that are not there right now. They're also reducing the amount of time you need to even engage with Gambit in the overall game. You no longer need to play it for your core weekly rewards. And they're reducing the number of challenges you need to complete for Gambit specifically to get that big, bright dust reward for doing all of the seasonal challenges. If you are the average player, the non-Gambit enthusiast, this should all sound like good news. And yet, I've seen a fervor for Gambit that I have literally never seen. I have never seen so much enthusiasm for a game mode that people claim to, at best, not play, and at worst, actively hate. And to me, it looks like a lot of people are getting mad for the sake of getting mad. Gambit has received quite a few amount of updates in its lifetime, with Witch Queen being the last and arguably one of the biggest updates it ever got. I understand there were some lulls in there, I know. Bungie themselves have said this basically did nothing to get people interested in Gambit. And after 5 years of trying to do stuff, it would not surprise me if this was Bungie's way of saying, it's time to move on. I'm tired of hearing that, if only Bungie had given it even more support, or if only they made a couple of maps, or if only they put good guns as rewards, that Gambit would have been completely saved and redeemed. First off, the guns thing, putting good loot in a place that people don't want to be in doesn't save the activity, it just forces you there. Yeah, there's more people there, but it's not because they want to be. And there have been good guns in Gambit before. They give it guns. The game mode has been renovated multiple times at this point and is still generally considered a meme. Imagine if Bungie came out and said that they were making a new Gambit map. Do you really think the community would have celebrated this as a whole? Or do you think they would have collectively groaned at the prospect of Bungie spending even more time on Gambit instead of something else? A new map is fun for a couple of games, a few games, and then you're straight back to the, oh, right, I'm playing Gambit. Yeah, right. Phase of Gambit, unless you are a Gambit enthusiast. To Bungie, that is not worth all of that time, when they could be making something else. Sandbox changes are considerably easier to make because they aren't brand new assets that need to be made. Also, to me, most of the problems with Gambit are sandbox-driven problems, and if I were designing Gambit, I would want the mode itself to be more enjoyable and stand on its own before I start investing a whole bunch of time into making new assets. Removing the few maps that we had was arguably not the greatest idea in the world, but I understand it came at a weird time with Bungie transitioning a bunch of stuff out of the game and probably wasn't feasible to keep those things at the time. I'm not happy about it. I understand why. But it's also not fair to say that Bungie never tried to make Gambit work, because they have. I know they tried doing Gambit Labs. Anyone participate in that? I totally forgot about it. The problem is that some people only view trying with success. If Gambit had become a success, some people would have said that Bungie tried, and because they tried, they succeeded. But because Gambit is still not the success that people want it to be, some people make the claim that Bungie hasn't tried. And that's simply not fair. You may not agree with how Bungie decided to do things. There are certainly some things I've disagreed with, but that doesn't mean development time was not spent on trying to make something happen. You can spare me with the whole, well, if they only tried this thing, Datto, it would have been a success. Because there's a chance they've thought of that, or they tried it, and it didn't work. We also only see the things that Bungie has deemed successful enough to put into the game. We don't see the cutting room floor. All of the things they might have tried, and they didn't work. But that still counts as work. It still counts as dev time spent on Gambit. If I work on a video and I have to do a bunch of rewrites on it and delete a bunch of paragraphs that are no longer relevant, I still did all that work, but you're not going to know about the bunch of paragraphs I just deleted. You just see the final video. I'm also not a conspiracy theorist who thinks that Bungie was intentionally trying to cripple the mode so that they wouldn't have to support it anymore, because as I've said before, no game developer seeks to make a bad game or a bad experience. If people are enjoying Gambit, that means more player engagement, and more player engagement means hooray. As much as people want to think, well, you know, they only did this, this, and this, and over 5 years, that's like barely anything. Y'all, they still gotta work on other parts of the game. It's pretty obvious that there is no, and probably never has been, Team Gambit working on Gambit over at Bungie, except for maybe when it first launched. They can only give so much attention to so many things at once. And Gambit never really got that same level of attention from the community as other things got. Certainly not the praise. Gambit kind of started in the middle. It started at neutral. And I don't think it ever really had an upswing in momentum towards that positive area. It's always just kind of been like, it's middle, and then it's just kind of gone down ever since. Sometimes things just don't end up working out. Sometimes you think you have a good idea, and you spend a lot of time on it, and it just doesn't work out. And that's okay. After 5 years, I'd rather Bungie come to the conclusion that it's not worth trying to update it anymore and just leave it be. Move on. I'm not saying they'll never update it again, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, trending in that direction. I think that the sandbox has kind of outgrown Gambit as well, and there are just too many things that make the invasion part of the experience unfun to play with or against. Like, I wasn't a fan of the whole both sides get power ammo all the time thing, but do I think it's better than the game just rolling the dice and seeing who happens to get power ammo? Yeah, probably. Gambit has always had some kind of sandbox issue, dating all the way back to launch with Queenbreaker. Yes, Queenbreaker used to be a god-tier Gambit weapon. And unfortunately, Bungie was not able to react to those kinds of things fast enough back then. But taking the invader out of Gambit, like I've seen suggested before, just turns Gambit into who can kill the boss the fastest, which I get being enticing to some people. I've certainly wanted a competitive PvE thing in the game for quite a long time, but there are many different ways to go about that versus trying to turn Gambit into that. The PvP part is what makes Gambit, well, Gambit. Also, it's a core playlist. I've seen so much feedback about there's nothing to go grind in it, there's no end game to it. Yeah, look at all the core playlists. If Gambit got Riptide instead of the Crucible, you would have done the same thing that you did for Crucible, you PvE lords. You played until you got the role you wanted, and then you'd leave and never come back. I know you, because I am you. Most people play the core playlist that they play because they want to play those things. You think Crucible mains are out there because they're still looking for a god roll gun? No, they're in there because they like the Crucible. You think Vanguard playlist is running hot with loot? No. People want to run Strikes Battlegrounds. It's what they enjoy. These are core playlist activities. They're not going to have the craziest loot in the world or the craziest armor to go grind out. That's not what they're about. Gambit, I guess, could have had an endgame variant. They sort of tried with Gambit Prime, but, you know, it got merged. It got merged. I'm guilty of the Gambit hate. You know, my opinion is no secret, and I'm someone who said way back when Gambit was first going to be a thing, that I thought it was going to be awesome. But I didn't have the foresight or the experience to know that playing a brand new thing while it's brand new in a very controlled environment is way different than playing it on the live game. Gambit had an okay launch, but the moment the first sandbox issues came to light, Queenbreaker, Sleeper, whatever, I don't think it ever really recovered. I'm sure Bungie wanted Gambit to be a success. I'm sure Bungie wanted to have it be a more important part of the game. And after all this time, if Bungie wants to hang it up, I understand. I don't feel misled or betrayed or whatever dramatic adjectives people are using. I'm sorry if you wanted Gambit to be something more, but it's clearly not there. And for Bungie, they're in sunk cost fallacy territory now. Maybe there is some sort of magic change that would make Gambit the best, but hasn't been found. That's all I want to say on Gambit specifically. I just saw so much, and I felt like I needed to say something on the matter. So, thank you for watching, listening. I'll see you next time.